Right. So,
This meeting is being recorded.
oh, I got that a couple times. Monique, you might need to on your back end mute your phone when you're not talking so you don't get the feedback.
So my phone is muted and my computer is not allowing me to mess with my audio at all. So,
Okay.
I can
So,
try to mute from my end.
okay, just
okay, awesome. Thank you.
because I see your phone highlighting up when you talk. So your phone is definitely connected, but not your audio to your computer. So you can always push the button on your phone also to mute when you're not talking so we don't get feedback through your phone as a secondary system. Get what I'm saying? You know, like when you can push the button in it. Y'all getting a free tech lesson. So we good? Yeah. All right, let's start the show here. So Ani Bonjour, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. You are joining the Mitten Mamas, and we are talking about parent leadership training. Where are your gaps? So I am going to let Monique take it from here because she's got her next slide. So thank you for joining us. We are hoping that it's a good one this time. Oh, Monique, you got to unmute yourself now. We're having auditory issues, folks. Sorry about. Kara, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I will try. Yes, no, are we good?
We're good.
That's a beautiful Friday. Yeah. Hi, I'm Kara Sutliff. Little confused right now, I guess, flustered, whatever we got here. But so I'm in the Grand Rapids, Kent County area of Michigan, and so besides being a mother of four that are absolutely amazing, wonderful children, I have been with parent leadership and advocacy for like on a business capacity for the last 5 years. Advocacy and speaking my mind since I could talk, I guess. So that's just kind of how I was raised. So me as Mitten, with a part of Mitten Mamas, has one of the proudest things or things that I enjoyed the most is when we worked together to collaborate over 240 surveys of different mothers throughout the state of Michigan. And through that, one of, like, I think in our last presentation, if you were actually able to join us with that one, we talked about how we are really proud of the fact that we're not competitive with other parent voice, parent leaders, mothers, even fathers. And with that, we were able to meet Cressy and bring her on board with us as Mitten Mamas, because we not only loved her passion, but we liked her very much. So I'm going to pass it over to her and let her tell you guys a little bit about her.
Thank you, Kara. So I'm not in the pretty picture. So, but I kind of was in the background of Mitten Mamas when they first got started. Like I knew Meredith from some other work, but unfortunately my work and I was in grad school. So I just, there's only so many hours in a day. But I've been doing parent advocacy for a long time as a special needs parent. So excited that my son graduated and I don't have to go to another IEB meeting for him ever. That's my big June thing. And so I'm really excited to come on board with this project. I think a lot when I do this work about how I felt when I started the journey with my son and how the professionals in the room made me feel about myself as a parent. And I don't really like that feeling, and I do not want any other parents to feel like that. So if I can help them learn and mentor and all the things and find that inner voice that they all have, that's what I'm here for. And Mo, are you ready, or are you still having tech issues? Are we with Monique or not?
Monique, is your audio working? I don't think so. Okay. All right. Well, we can always log in, log back out, and we can see how that goes. I'm actually, so
Hello?
Mia is on. Oh, wait.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay.
Yay!
Sorry about that. I do apologize. So, yeah, I don't know, my camera, and I mean, not my camera, my phone and my laptop are being totally against me. So I don't know what I did to them, but so my name is Monique Vasquez. I'm also from the Grand Rapids area of Michigan. I've been a parent leader for about 3 years, and was the start of Mitten Mamas with all 3 beautiful ladies, and was excited to have Cresty join as well. What I love most, that what brought us together, was our foundation work that we did, doing the toolkit, and it's like coming to life now in our own way, and we are going to talk about filling in the gaps, and our next.
Oh, wait. So we have Nia joining us, Mo. Sorry. So,
I do
or I'm sorry.
apologize.
So, yeah, we have Nia with us. So, Mia, do you want to just say something real quick about you before we get into the spiciness of today?
I sure can. Let me turn on my camera so everybody can see me for a second. Hello, everyone. I am Mia Halcyon Jones, and I am a parent leader out of Wayne County in Detroit. And I've been with Mitten Mamas for a couple of years, and I have 4 children, ages ranges from 28 to 5. And so I've been in parent advocacy for over 28 years, because as a mother with 4 special needs children and being a woman who identifies as Black and brown, I always have to advocate for services and help wherever I am. So, and I love this work because I love to help organizations and other people implement parent leadership the right way.
Heck yeah. So, and then so Ani Bourgeois, I'm Meredith Kennedy. I am the glue of bringing all of these wonderful women together through parent advocacy in the state of Michigan. I'm privileged and honored and grateful to do some of this awesome work with them. One of our foundational projects, which the curriculum that you guys are going to go through today, we say that in a very loose way because I'm a former educator, but it came from the fact that we did a National Parent Leadership Institute with the Early Childhood Development Corporation in Michigan. And so we helped create their foundational work, their theory of change. And that's nice, but then you actually need the guts to go with all of it. So it's great, we have this theory, now what do we do with it? So that's what I'm really proud about Mitten Mamas, is we give you the practical in and outs of the over 20 years, essentially each, that we have of being in these spaces. And combined, I think we ended up being like 84 years of combined experience being in these spaces, advocating for our children through all stages, particularly in the 0 to 5 when they need the most help and systems change. So with that, I'm going to give it back to Monique, and she's going to start us out. Oh, we can't hear you, Monique. Okay, so with that, I'm going to let her go ahead and do her tech end, and we apologize. This is actually something we're talking about today. So the 4 things, it was really hard to come up with this presentation when we have pages and hours of recordings and experience, and especially as Kara mentioned, talking to those over 200 parents throughout the state of Michigan about systems change within the system. And so we held a meeting and we're like, okay, we have to cut this down. What's the most important thing that we can jam pack in 90 minutes? So we're going to go over technology, scheduling parents, pregame and postgame, which some people may have never heard about. And then the most important part, which is the building of the community and knowing us, like get to know us, meet where we're at, because we all have different lives. That's you, Kara.
Yep, I was like, so I'm taking over every time I go and hit. I'm not lying to anybody now. So every time I go to hit the unmute, I'm like, like here we go. Are we gonna hear me or not? So, but I guess it's very fitting that we're talking about technology. So, so the first thing is when we discuss technology and we're handing to parent leaders, giving technology to parent leaders. First, don't assume your parents have what they need or what you need them to have to do the role you want them to do. So if depending, if just don't assume anything, you never know. And with that, so not only also assuming they have the technology, don't assume they have the software that comes along with the programs or the emails or so on, that they would need to open the files that you're going to send them and you want them to read from the documents that you're wanting their opinions on, or that they have the internet access to be able to maybe conduct the meeting correctly, or do they even know how to operate Zoom to get on the meeting with you? So when it comes to technologies, there's a lot of things you have to think around and continue, or if there is like different options. Cressy, you want to finish up there?
Sure. So
one of
the things that we talked about in technology, I wanted to touch real quick on what Kara said about the software programs, just because this just happened to me as a parent, where my son's school sent out something as a PowerPoint presentation on our parent app. And it's like, who can open a PowerPoint on their phone? And so I asked the staff member, can you send this out as a PDF? And she told me, no, here's a screenshot. If you want to read the rest, you'll have to get on a laptop. Let's just say I followed that up with an email to the superintendent, but those are things to take into consideration. And that's fresh on my mind because it literally just happened to me. And it's really frustrating for me as a parent, as an advocate, but also because we just went through this whole thing with COVID in our school district that we do not have equitable internet access even within our school district. And we just talked about this for 2-3 years and you obviously didn't pay attention. And so one of the things too, as she talked about, like making sure that people have the appropriate technology, one of the things that often gets overlooked is headphones. We talk about tablets, we talk about laptops, but one of the things is headphones that we talked about. Like if you have parents who are doing things from home, they probably have a lot of background noise going on, and it can help filter that out if they have to come on their mic and speak, but it can also help them focus on the task at hand instead of the distraction, everything that's going on behind them. Another
Yeah,
thing,
I want to bounce off that, Cressy, because like the internet access issue. So I live in a community where we didn't even have internet until COVID hit. I only have one cell phone provider in my community. So if we even talk about technology with access to internet, in order for me to get my internet, I had to have my social security number, I had to have my driver's license, I had to have all of these things in place to actually get internet access, because to do a phone hotspot was too expensive for me, and I didn't have good cell phone signal to begin with. So even with that technology, with that bandwidth, and knowing what the reliable bandwidth is in your community, and then what about if someone doesn't have a social security number? How are they even going to get the internet at their house? If they don't have a driver's license and that is required, if they want you to hold it with a bank account so they can do automatic billing, those are all things that families may not have access to with technology. So even thinking about, are we going to afford to do a hotspot for our families so they can get on? Are we going to allow that $50 hotspot as part of our agreement for reimbursement or providing them with that. I think that's something we don't think about. Kara, I know that down in Grand Rapids, you're in a major city, but you've had problems with your internet.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually going to bounce off on that. With being, there's the different speed levels. I guess I am not a tech savvy person by any means. Like since joining the Leader Mitten Mamas, especially, all of a sudden I do more with computers than I ever have. But so there's different speeds of bandwidth and quantities and stuff. And even though I live in a very internet accessible area, and Wi-Fi and cell phones of every, you can get whatever cell phone carrier you want or prepaid or any of that kind is available, but I can be absolutely fine talking to them else and just lose me and become robot voice. And I don't know, like, if it's because I do know I have the lower, cheaper version for myself. So I'm assuming that the companies and corporations around me, the Sky Towers, them people have the more expensive, higher power bandwidth, and they will take mine. So that's why I lose what I lose. Or if it's at a high part of the day where it's super busy, then my lower quality just keeps going further away. So there'll be times where all of a sudden I just have to turn off the camera, so it's interesting how, and then when parents turn off their camera, you're not paying attention, or they're not connected or not focused. And it really has nothing to do with that. It's, I can't hear you, or you sound like you're, robotic on me or breaking up, or I sound that way. So I turned off my camera to be as engaged as possible. So really it's the complete opposite.
So with that, I want to touch on the technology aspect of not just the internet, but something that as parents, we all struggled with coming into with COVID and trying to do our advocacy in this way, which is technology. I'm going to be real upfront. My first piece of technology, I have a brother who used to work for the waste management in St. Louis, and I was complaining that I don't have a computer at home, and he grabbed me a garbage computer. I took it up to my high school. They made it work. So for the first year of doing advocacy online with COVID, I had literally a garbage computer that I got. And I used to work for tribal governments. And so I have this picture down here because it sparked me of, where are all of the computer graveyards? When I worked in tribal government, the grants would pay for computers every 2 years. And so when you're thinking about okay, you guys just told me I need to have internet, but we have this budget, and then we might need to give them technology. Well, one of these is look in your computer graveyard. What do you have from past programs that you are no longer using in your office? And can that be provided to families? Is there any kind of gap that you have or policy that you have that says you can't? We'll fix that. Stop that gap, because it's not doing any good with those dusty computers sitting in the back if they still have some life with them. Because I will tell you, when I started having issues with my computer, and then the screen in the back, and then my processing system, and someone reached out to me and said, "Hey Meredith, what's going on with your technology? Like, we can't hear you." And I'm like, "Well, it's not my bandwidth. I have this literally a garbage computer." And so they went to their graveyard of technology and mailed me a really nice laptop. It lasted me for another 2 years before it died. At least it got me along. I know that I reached out to the same organization in Monique's computer, which clearly was good in the graveyard for a little while, but now is having auditory issues. So don't think that with your budget constraints that you can't provide something, because you might have something already sitting in an office that is part of that computer graveyard when you do your upgrades. And so I just want to put that out there. And it's nice with Chromebooks. They're cheap. They're like $300, which is great. The only problem is, and all these ladies will tell you, and so can Mia on that, is when we started the Parent Leader Institute, I got everybody Chromebooks, and I was working off that trash computer, right? I didn't realize that they didn't have the same operating systems. So here I am trying to teach them how to do this document, open this document, do this. And meanwhile, I had a different interface on the back end. So while they can be cheap and a very economical option, they also are not full of bells and whistles that many systems people's computers have. There's tablets, which are also great. The only problem is you might not be able to type on those. And then you also have a con because there's a lot of applications and apps, even to this day, where I know that Kara's trying to do something on a tablet. And I'm like, well, isn't that button there? And she's like, no. So even understanding if you're giving technology out and you want to do a Jamboard, if someone has an old Apple, it might not show up as a Jamboard. And so look around, find and see what other organizations have. Work with other nonprofits that do parent advocacy, because that's what I did in order to help out Monique, which apparently I'm going to have to put another call in. And then Cressy, I know you were going to touch on some of the accessibility and you did a little bit earlier. So I apologize for not jumping the gun on that slide.
Oh, no, that's okay. And I think too, this is something that happened to all of us when we were doing our work with ECIC.
I'm sorry, I want to jump in real quick, Cressy. I just also wanted to say too, if there is a difference between Android use and Apple use too, that has to be brought up as well. Because I was just thinking when Meredith was saying how she can tell when I'm on the, oh, and Mia has her hand up too. When she's talking about, I'm like, I can't do it, or I'm on the tablet. She's an Apple, I'm an Android. So I'm like, she can make her self have a mustache, and I want to have a mustache. No. I don't have that feature.
Yeah, and so, oh, sorry.
Yeah, did you want to hop in real quick, Mia? I see your hand. Sorry, Cressy.
I do. I want to hop in right quick. As Meredith said, she got us those wonderful computers, and we were so grateful to her because none of us had a laptop before that. But like she said, she didn't necessarily know. Actually, I had an issue yesterday. I also work for a nonprofit in Detroit called Mommies in the D, where we work with young mothers, and I'm a village leader, so I have to facilitate some meetings. So I was on the meeting with the CEO of that nonprofit, and she was trying to walk me through being able to present and annotate, and I was like, she shared a screen and she's like, you don't have any of that. I was like, no, I don't. So you can't really assume that. So my laptop that Meredith got me is not interchangeable with something else that I might be doing. So even though I'm a parent might say to you, yes, I have technology, but that technology might not be accessible to what the parent needs for you to do it with your organization. So always be mindful of that too, because that just happened to me yesterday.
All right, now, Cressy.
I'm kind of laughing because, we have this idea that technology makes things easier. And I think that's kind of true, but it's also kind of false. Sometimes it just tests our patience. But I wanted to say, Meredith touched on this too, making sure that you're using universally accessible stuff in terms of PDF files. If you're sending a file to a parent, even if it's just something that you want them to review, a PDF file is pretty much universally accessible, and it's a lot smaller in terms of data for parents to download, because you may have parents who have they have internet access, but they didn't think about the fact that they may have a limited amount of data on their plan. Because sometimes, we don't think about that. Sometimes parents don't want to talk about it because they're not necessarily comfortable. They feel like maybe you might judge them. And so just being cognizant of that.
Yeah, I'm going to bounce right off that, Cressy, because there's other things that are not accessible. And I apologize because Monique's audio is not working. So now I get to be the double M for M&M here, Mo and Meredith. So checking really simple things. Do your families have email addresses that they check on the regular? Or is it getting bumped into their spam? So you might even have to set up email addresses for some of your families that you're working with. And considering, please, please, I love that we're on Zoom, because whenever someone uses Microsoft Teams, I have the bandwidth of one of those little red straw sticks that you get in your coffee at, McDonald's. Meanwhile, the data you're trying to give me is a McFlurry with, chunks of chocolate in it. So really looking at the difference with the technology and the bandwidth it uses. Microsoft Office is a paid for service, and I hate to bounce Google up there, but Google Docs is even what we use because it's accessible and it's free. We use Google Forms because it's accessible and it's free. So looking at the differences between Microsoft Word suite and how we can't open documents or edit documents unless we have that technology is huge. Do your parents print things out? I am going to share a story. By the way, we have a very funny printer story, okay? Because you may not think that printers are a big deal, but they are a very big deal. With our first presentation, and I'm going to let Kara jump in, is we are still very visual people and we like paper, okay? So we can follow along. And some of that has to do with the technology that we even have. They may not have the presenter box up in the corner when you do your slides and get to follow along. And so we were trying to figure out as Mitten Mamas how to finish our presentation for all of you good folks last time and then get a hard copy to everyone. And Kara, if you want to finish the story out about Office Max.
Right. So actually, I have, as you were speaking, I actually have got, the last time I tried to use Microsoft Team, I got banned from Microsoft Team. I don't know how long, but apparently it was abusive. My use on Microsoft Team was abusive. And I was like, what is that? Like, completely confused as to what it was. And so my husband, I'm like, he's my little tech when I have any issue. My tech guy, the best I have for a tech guy. And he's like, what did you do? What did you say? And I'm like, I was literally logging on. So where he's like, they banned you, Kara. And I'm like, no, they can't. Like, I didn't do anything. So I ended up logging in under his email and his account or whatever, and just put my name. Well, and he kept playing with it. And apparently it was usage. I had overused the free service or so. But too much usage is the best explanation that we were able to get. And I kept using his for a while. And then something like I was able to get back on mine after a break of Teams. And I was just like, I don't know. But I'm like, I swear I didn't do anything. I broke the internet. So there's that story. But that's just what, if you know me, there's always going to be something silly that happens.
No, that's a true story. That right there.
So yeah, and then I think that must be another Android thing, not having the presenter box on the corner, because I was definitely needing that hard copy. And I do have a printer, but my printer may be old or a different style. I didn't know what I was really looking for and buying when I got a printer, and the ink is outrageously expensive and uses insane amount of ink to print 10 copies. So I don't know if it's a photo, like not meant for just black and white copies. I'm not sure, but it's like $100 to fill. And I was like, I'm not buying ink. Like, I'm just not doing it. So we're like, how can we send it? We can't overnight it because blah, 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 whatever. So we decided Office Max. That'd be the best way to get this to me from up here to here in the state, kind of.
4.5 hours away. So it is possible.
Right. So Mayor's gonna send it to Office Max via fax or email. I'm not even sure how she did it. She's just like,
I went in person. I had to go in person.
Yes. She's like, and I was like, well, what do I do when I get there? She's like, just go in there and say, I'm here to pick up. Tell them your name and you're here to pick up. And I was like, okay. So got the little envelope and stuff. And then he's like, oh, did she tell you that it's not all on the paper? And I'm like, huh? What do you mean not on the paper? And he was like, yeah, some of it's kind of off the side of the paper. Did she tell you? And I was like, No, but if she sent it, I guess I'm good.
So
I
even we have printer issues to the point where even Office Max couldn't make our presentation with our notes stay on that. And I think that it's important to know these things because as learning styles for your families, people want things in front of them. And so if you know, and it's about getting to know your families, which we're going to get to, but if you know that you are only able to do things in Microsoft, then you're going to want to send a hard copy. But whatever happens with that agenda, you need to make sure it stays solid unless you inform your families, because we don't have necessarily the ability, and we have to be very creative and very resourceful in making sure that we all have what we need when we go forward with these meetings. And so it's a big deal. If you need someone to sign something as an agreement and they don't know or don't have the technology to do a electronic signature and you need to mail it to them, you also need to provide the envelope in the stamp so they can get it back to you. Because even though your Apple or your Android might be able to take a picture and do a PDF, not everyone understands how to do that. And it can be a barrier. And I'm going to tell you what, after that whole rigmarole with Kara and I a couple weeks ago, I was like, that's it. When I see you next time, and we all got a copy of this presentation at 1 a.m. 2 days ago, ladies. Okay. For everyone on the call, we were up at 1 a.m. getting a copy of this and trying to print it on the new fancy printer that I had in the back of my car. So it is a big deal if you want things printed, if you want people to take notes, if they don't have that technology. And then Monique, which I don't know if you still have audio, but Monique was going to talk about interpretation services, making sure that your families have interpretation. And then, are your families literate? If you're only giving things in their language, do they know how to read and write in their language also? So you can interpret things all you want, but if they can't actually receive and have the information because they're illiterate in their own language, that's also a consideration that you need to take in effect. All right, Cressy, scheduling, your favorite thing in the whole world.
Sorry about that. Forgot to unmute myself. So scheduling can be a challenge for work meetings, family meetings, whatever. We all, I think that's kind of universal, that getting a group of people to a consensus can be a challenge. But when you're working with families, it's really important, if you're going to talk about being equitable, that you actually put some action behind those words. So what that looks like is you may have to be outside of your work hours to work around a family schedule. If you're looking to, put together a doodle poll or a Survey Monkey or whatever it is, when you're providing some options, make sure that you hit different times of the day, morning, afternoon, evening, different days of the week. And sometimes you might have to step way outside your comfort zone and do a weekend, because that's what true equity looks like. And so keep in mind that not all of your families work 9 to 5. There might be third shifters, there might be second shifters. And also, because of knowing that that challenge exists, maybe you have to break your group into smaller groups. We have one that meets on Mondays and we have one that meets on Thursday evenings. And, it's never going to be 100% perfect, but it's really about making that extra effort to be accommodating. And then going from there.
Absolutely. We know that you guys liked some interactive stuff last time we did. Can we just see in the chat how you guys currently schedule? Like, do you use doodle polls? Do you put out a different Google form survey? Are you scheduling by word of mouth? We're just real curious how everyone is attempting to schedule. Do you just put out an email with a calendar invite? I can tell you that for all of us, it's really nice not just to get an email, but the actual calendar invite that we can throw on our phones and accept, and then push the button in order to get on the meeting. So I'm very interested to see. All right, so we have doodle polls. Oh, a group text. That's really nice. I love that idea. That's a good one. Group text, calendar invite. And then with your group text, do you then have to try to organize who's available, or do you just throw dates out and see what sticks?
Whoever put that in the chat, I think there's two of you now. You could even unmute and kind of explain that, because I'm interested too, because that I was like, that one could be confusing depending on how many people are in that group, but I like that too.
So our family advisory shared that evenings really work best for them. So and they had asked to have a group text so we could send out resources and be able to stay in touch between meetings in a less formal manner. So knowing that evenings work and Tuesdays and Wednesdays are best for our families, we send out 4 or 5 different times and dates and ask them what works best, and some of them will reply individually, some of them will put it in the group chat, and we just track it on our end, and then send out a calendar invite. I send it out through text when it will be, so, and then I send out an email, so they're getting it in 3 different ways to be able to, and then we also call before the meeting and send a text as a reminder, because we're not meeting super frequently, so we want to make sure that we're hitting as many different ways as possible.
I love that. And I love that you said hitting as many different ways as possible. I think that's great, because you do have to cast a net for people who operate differently, right? So we have some people who do really well with text messaging. I'm a very audio person, so I love a phone call, but then I'm going to blab your ear off. Okay, just so we're clear. And then my email box looks like no one's touched it since the internet got created. So that, I love the fact that you spread that out across. With scheduling, it can be so difficult also. I'm gonna put this up here. So this recently, this is the hot tea of the session. There's another one too. You're all gonna love it. So we recently put a call out for, hey, can any of our families that we know across Michigan please send us something where they were like, man, what, I have no idea what they are asking for, and I have no idea what the times are. And so I know that if you were at our last Mitten Mamas, we did the pitch. And so this is a pitch that was done out to families across Michigan within this county. So for anyone who did the pitch, can you maybe, we want to make this a little interactive. Can you look at this, and I can read it if you'd like, for anyone who is not necessarily maybe driving or something while they're on today. But tell us some of the things that are missing from the pitch, because this also has to do with scheduling. And this is why it's so important when you put your pitch out to families about what they're going to be involved in. If your pitch is not good and your scheduling is not confirmed, or at least in some kind of construct for families, it's not going to go well. So I think that the most important part of this email is a couple other things, right? So if you're reading this email, it says that they want you to join a county local interagency coordinating council for home advisory. They contain their mission. It says parent invoice or parent input and voice are essential to our success, and we value the time parents take to participate in our meetings. We provide parent stipends of $50 for the advisory team meetings you are able to attend. The stipends are paid out in the final of their following final meetings of the year that occurs each May. So we're going to hit on that for one moment, put that in the parking lot. You can be considered an early on parent representative until your child who participated is 12 years of age. So then it attaches a big long handbook, fatal flaw number 1, with the meeting schedule attached, fatal flaw number 2, you're meeting 4 times and I don't see the dates in front of me, you're having me go through another email section to look at this. If you want to join, you have to fill out these extra forms if you have access to the way that they want you to fill out the form. And then I have no idea where they're being held. No idea what months they're being held in, the dates, the times. The other thing that really got us as Mitten Mamas was this stipend. I know we're not talking about parent reimbursements. We're going to save this for our final conversation next week. But the $50 stipends are going to be paid out after all the meetings in May of 2024. So you are asking parents to come join something. They don't know what the times, they only know it's 4 times a year. And then we're going to give you $100 or $200 if you attend, but you don't get it until May. And so with this pitch in this scheduling attached like this, I'm going to be very interested as a parent for how successful this advisory team is, because I'm not getting the information right away and they're not actively having me participate in their scheduling. Because when I pulled up the scheduling document, it's from 9:30 to 10 a.m. and I can't even tell you the dates, but the extra document that they put in there. So they're already asserting that your stipend is tied to the times that we are arbitrarily choosing without your input, even though it says together with our advisory team and their mission that we're going to work to uplift this. And so I thought this was a really interesting call out to put into this document today, because of the fact that it reflects on what we did for the pitch, and it also reflects on the scheduling in itself. All right, now we're going to get to pregame, postgame. Kara and Cressy, these are their
My
2
favorite
favorite
one.
things. I think Kara stepped out for a second. So
Okay.
you want to go ahead and start first, Cressy?
I sure do, because that letter got me all fired up. Because there was no pregame. There's just show up. So what do we mean by the pregame? It's the meeting before the meeting.
I'm sorry. I'm interrupting you. I did step away for a minute, but that's
Okay.
because I received an email or read something this morning, and it goes right along with that email too. And it says just the one-liner that I really want to share with everybody, especially even the other Mitten Mamas, is that when you now I have to find it too, because this is completely jumping whatever about keeping the authentic of the group with the parent, even with the paid support for these campaigns. It says, for instance, creating a parent advisory position to justify an already draft policy without any parent input is not parent organization. It is tokenism. Just wanted to throw that one out there, because when I read that, I was like, ooh. So yeah, can't send a parent something and expect like that whole thing summed up in a why you don't do it that way. But okay, now Cressy, sorry, continue.
Okay. Well, actually, that's perfect though, because really, you know what they should have had with that was a pregame with that thing saying, we would like to invite you to this meeting. And you know what? They're having some informational sessions. They don't want to poll the whole community. We get that. So maybe pick a couple dates, times, evening, morning, hit the, something for everybody button. And then have that information available at that meeting. See, they could have had a pregame to the pregame. So I don't know. But really what the pregame is about is bringing, so let's just, you've got your parents, we know who's going to come, and we've identified all this stuff. We've figured all this stuff out. Now, how do we get started? So initially the pregame really is about you getting to know the parents getting to know you, and the parents getting to know each other. Because for all of this to work and be functional and cohesive and impactful, you've all got to be sort of kind of on the same page. And it really, that first pregame meeting if you're starting a brand new project, that first pregame meeting really needs to focus on helping parents understand what the purpose of their group is. Why are they here? Who are you as an organization? What do you do? What's your specialty? What do you, and then most importantly, kind of, is there any technical jargon that they need to know? Because when we come into these spaces as parents and everyone's talking, and I'm going to say this as a special education parent, and everyone's talking in acronyms, I'm half listening because I'm like, what is that? What is it? Like making sure that everyone understands the language that comes along with the work that you're trying to do. This is where you can hand out handouts of like, these are the key terms that we're going to use. This is what we're looking at doing. This is what our organization is about. Here's a little bit of information about the people from our agency that you're going to be interacting with. Here's who they are as people. And then, working on agendas and things like that. And then as you start to go through the sequence of doing your meetings and stuff, sometimes if you're going to be meeting with a lot of people, because this kind of fluctuates depending on the type of work that you're doing, but say you're bringing a lot of other people from different organizations together, maybe it's a quarterly update meeting, something like that, bringing the parents together before that to help them understand what's going to be talked about, and making sure that they're in a place to receive the knowledge, because sometimes it's really overwhelming when you're in this space and you've got all these people who they're all in meetings together all the time, and they're essentially talking to each other, and the parents are kind of off to the side, like, we're just here for what exactly? And that becomes really, really frustrating as a parent. And ironically, when it happens to me, I do work in the system. I'm here today as a parent, but I got to the space that I am as a professional because of my experience as a parent advocate. But when I'm in that space and people see me as a parent, they talk in a different way. There's a lot of bias that happens and things like that. And so helping with that pregame and helping make sure that the parents, and it also kind of helps you understand the level of knowledge, because the parents are not going to come in all at the same spot. You may have some newbies, you may have some people like Mia who's been doing this for nearly 3 decades, and understanding what they've got a lot of knowledge, and helping them realize that, helping your employees realize that, your coworkers, team members, whoever. And I really think that that's an important thing.
Yeah,
And
setting that foundation is huge. I know, Kara, you wanted to talk about the importance of having a pregame, because you and I think it was Monique ran into something that is now called pineappling, which blew our mind, that this even exists, but it wouldn't if people did a pregame.
Yep. So, yeah, it's been in now a couple different advisory boards that I am a part of, and Mo too. Actually, we're in 2. Me and Mo like to be our powdered and brown sugar duo. We come together. Like, it works way better. Even we're scheduling. It comes together. We come together way better. I can keep her on track. She knows, like, I'm her scheduler as long as we're together. If she does anything without me, then sorry. We make jokes all the time, like, I don't know what you have to do, you went and did that on your own. And then I'm like, you need to let them know that brown sugar don't work without the powdered sugar. Anyhow, a couple of the groups have done pineapple moments. Pineapple moments are they're like a safe word, I guess, that these groups are coming up with. So if we are discussing something that is triggering you, you can type in the chat, or if you're in person, say pineapple moment, and there's the committee, the group, the council has decided that means you table or stop completely that discussion. In my head, it's insane that if I was triggered unexpectedly about something, I'm supposed to have to remember some random word like pineapple moment and state that out loud, and then make a big old deal about it, instead of just either turning off my camera and collecting myself, or doing what I need to do as an adult to take care of whatever triggering emotions are happening. And if, most professionals know what they're working on as it comes up and goes. So if you have these free games, you're going over with the parents what is expected. And if they are like, "Ooh, I don't want to talk about that subject," you're aware that that parent's not going to want to talk about that subject. Yes, stuff is still may happen where someone says something a little off the wall as to the topic that could trigger somebody. But if you go through the agenda with parents ahead of time, they have a knowledge of ideas of what's going on, and then they will be able to say, "I don't want to take in that part," or "I don't want to hear these statistics because that's too relative into my life," for whatever reason. So, but to expect us to throw out pineapple moment is absolutely insulting, in my opinion. And we don't need to do that. And also the pre-games give an amazing chance. It's like a water cooler game. Like you guys have the water cooler talk or a coffee chat in the break room. This is the chance for you as professionals and other parent leaders to really get to know each other too. And so you take advantage of that community building. And like Cressy was saying, you have meetings with each other all the time. This is a chance for us to have meetings too.
Yeah, and I think that is super important, because when we talk about pre-games came because many of us, Cressy, Monique, Kara, and I, we hadn't met Mia yet. We're all part of Think Babies Michigan, before it was called Think Babies. And I was a parent leader on the executive committee, and I'm a bright gal and I catch on pretty well, okay? But I had no idea what was going on in the world, okay? I was like off in left field. And so what I did, because I knew I wasn't the only parent that felt that way, is I started a text thread with parents. I'd get their number out of the chat and I'd be like, "Hey, I get an advanced copy of this. Do you want to look at it with me?" And that's how pre-game started. I started hosting them on my own, figured out how to use Zoom. So that's why I'm pretty good on the old Zoomer, because I wanted to know these other parents that were in this room when we're all over the state. In the state of Michigan, it takes about 12 hours to get from the top of the state of Michigan in the UP down to where Mia is. So yeah, Cressy too. So it's a long drive. And I wanted to know these people because it's a cultural tenet of my community, is to know people before you start going and doing good work with people. And so the fact that pre-game started from parents wanting to get together, and they were really successful. I'd host one on a Sunday and one on a weekday. Sometimes I do a Saturday morning and we drink coffee and people showed up. If not, I left the Zoom open and I just had an hour where my family didn't bother me because they thought I was working. So it was wonderful. But from that, we really made change in a really good way. And so when you offer a pregame, these are some of the tidbits that we have learned, is ideally it should be another parent leader, because so many parent leaders, when we're going into spaces and don't have trust, as a parent leader, I'm not going to tell you everything because I don't know if you know someone who knows someone from a service I'm getting. And so that authentic parent engagement comes from being with your peers in that space, and in having the parents be leaders in that way. Hosting the pregame also helps shift that power dynamic, where the power comes back to the families who you are trying to uplift and hold a space in the system. So the things that I have learned, because I'm going to be real honest, there's a lot of things we've learned about pre-games over the last couple of years. Big things that you all need to know. These are our words of wisdom. If you are going to do a pregame, pick a very strong parent leader and ask them if they will help you. Make sure that they know all the parents in the spaces and ask them and compensate them. We're going to talk about compensating next week, but compensate them for that time. Schedule a pregame 5 to 7 days ahead of the actual meeting. Make sure there's an agenda supplied to that parent leader holding these meetings. So then that way they can prep for the week later. We often just dump an agenda on parent leaders like the day before or the day of, and everyone has different ways that they process information. A lot of times I will look at something and be like, I don't know what that jargon is, and I haven't seen that. Let me do some grandma Google research, right? And so allowing parents to have that 5 to 7 days and then communicate between each other after, in between the pregame and when the actual meeting is happening is crucial, because then we can also share our ideas and say, you know what, when you said that in the pregame, it really hit me. And I'm going to make sure I back you up when we talk about that on the agenda, because I thought I was the only family member feeling that. And now I've learned that there's other families. Making sure they're not held on a Monday. Anybody who has kids knows that Monday is the worst day. If you are working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, never have a pregame on a Monday. Look, we learned that real fast. And then reoccurring. So if you know that your meetings are reoccurring for any advisory, make sure that your pre-games are reoccurring also, and they're set in a schedule. So scheduling something on a consistent basis every Wednesday. I think someone had put in the chat, and I love that they're consistent with their scheduling. That is so much better for our families as we're trying to navigate family advocacy in our work life like that, and just life in general. So having that consistent day that's 5 to 7 days before your regular agenda meeting. And then making sure it follows your reimbursement policy. If you are asking parents to put in more work outside of that meeting, make sure if they are going to these pre-games that they are also compensated for that time. And I know, Mia, I'm going to have you, because I'm going to have you, if you're available, to mention the pregame that someone did, but it was the organization and how that felt. Instead of parents leading the pregame, the organization leading the pregame, because I thought that was really impactful.
I'm here, Mary. You're talking about the advocacy group that me and Kira are on, that they started the pregame.
Yes, that one. Yeah. If you can
Yeah.
just mention the dynamic change with that.
Yeah. So actually, me and Kira were on an advisory council. We were on there for 2 years, home visiting advisory council, and during COVID, so we never really met them in person. So like halfway through the first year, they decided to implement a pregame, because we went in like, okay, we know we are experienced in home visiting services, but we've never been on an advisory, and we don't know what exactly was going on. And they're like, okay, we'll just go to the meetings and we'll talk later. So they decided maybe that didn't work out so well, just us going to the meetings and trying to find our way. So they decided to implement a pre and a post game. So the pre-game, we would meet like a couple of days before the actual advisory council meeting, and they would go over the agenda with us. We would talk about where we can implement our own voice and our own experiences, what we might have questions about, any acronyms on the agenda that we weren't familiar with. And so then we would go to the meeting, and then after that, usually a day after, or sometimes right after, or usually a day after, so it's still fresh in our mind, we would do the post game, where we would go over what worked good, what didn't work good, where we thought we could have, we maybe didn't have chance to implement our voice, or what we didn't understand. And it was just like a game changer, because in my own experience over all these years, I've never had a pre or post game. And I know that sounds crazy, because now it's like so popular with organizations, but I never had that. It's like, okay, this is what we want you to do this, and you figure it out. And even with having the experience I've had, it's like, okay, but you want me, I don't know acronyms for your organization, so I'm just supposed to figure that out. I don't actually know what, maybe your year plan or your evaluation, or I don't know any of that, but I'm just supposed to go in. You send me the agenda maybe a couple days before, and I'm supposed to just figure it out. So that kind of doesn't work out well. So this pre and post game was like so wonderful, and me and Kira, that's why we love wherever we go to talk about it, because it was just like a game changer with our parent leadership.
Thank you, Mia. So those are good stories.
I'm cutting you
sorry,
out. No, I keep I'm sorry. Maybe I'm the one that's going to need to apologize. I keep jumping in on everybody today. But so I was lucky enough to experience both the with the one that Meredith conducted, and then and it was actually me that kind of started suggesting like we should do a pregame with the other advisory board, because I experienced with Think Babies Michigan before they were Think Babies Michigan, what it was like to all of a sudden have these pre-games with the parents. So I suggested it, and I have luckily already knew Mia in person because of a different home visiting state initiative that we were on. So we knew each other, but we did not know the rest of the advisory team.
Advisory.
Yeah, words can be hard. So anyhow, the rest of the team. So they started, like she said, halfway through to do these meetings. They were very helpful in understanding the acronyms and the agenda and that kind of, but it was always led by the director of the advisory and then someone from accounting to make sure that we were actually present the whole time. And so the difference though was it was more of a meeting compared to, it seemed more of a gathering of minds with the one that Meredith led. And it was here's a time to support you and help you, and a way of us to get together. And not that like I agree that if the systems person, the leader of your group should be there, especially in the beginning, if if a new parent doesn't know what they're doing. But once you get a seasoned, strong leader parent, maybe leave it into their hands a little bit and let them sculpt or guide or lead the new onboarding parents, because it's just a safer, more community strong built. But it is also a way for the system, you guys to and I hope you guys don't take system as a negative word, because it's not a negative word. We don't mean it as a negative thing in any way, but the providers a chance to get to know us and us to get to know you, which is very important too. But it was more of a like this is this. There wasn't a lot of time to professional development in each other, I guess, as well as just the cause. So kind of make it as keep it professional and to the point, but also make it so it's a little bit of a water cooler event as well.
Get to know each other. So I like that. So we promised 2 spicy things. We give you an email, and now I'm going to give you a text thread that I had to put names out of. So these are 2 separate text threads. So I made a call out to some text threads from some of our fellow mitten mamas across the state regarding a meeting that they were at where they had no idea what was going on. They had no pre-games, no post-games, no check-ins. And so I want to just address the one on the left real quick, okay? So because parent leaders will get to know each other on the back end if we mesh well, okay? And I happen to be part of one of these threads, hence the Jason Momoa on the one side. But let's start with the left. So, sorry, Jessica. So the one on the left is people are lost. They don't know what is going on. They're annoyed at whoever Christian is who is talking. They're talking in a very negative way about what's going in on this meeting. And then they're having a conversation back and forth about what's happening in this meeting. And I just want you to know on this particular thread, there's about 6 parents, okay? So all of them were jumping in on this thread on the left. So when parent leaders don't feel involved on the back end, they don't use your chat anymore. We learned about Zoom, and if the meeting's recorded, we hop on the old cell phone and ask each other what's going on. Now, the one on the right, I think is very important, because this also one, not only do you know we talk smack, but on the right, you understand that if we don't know who is talking, we call someone. I felt like the last meeting I attended was only people with fancy titles talked. We should be able to name who the fancy title is. If we are doing a good job making sure our parents are authentically engaged, it shouldn't be fancy title, it should be a call out. And quite honestly, this whole thread wouldn't happen if we actually prepared and made our family leaders feel included. So on my end, I had no idea what these people are meeting at, and I threw out the Jason Momoa because it was a nice little gift where you sit down and you just watch it happen. In the unfancy titles. So what that means that there's people they don't even know who are talking, but don't have a whole bunch of alphabet soup after their name also talking. And so this whole group thread on the one on the right is really talking about, I'm not engaged. I don't know who this is. I have no idea what they're talking about. Now they're in a bad mood about it. Okay. Like that just says it right there. And then they're talking about budgetary information. So something was brought up in this meeting about something not being reimbursable when they already had seen a budget with a bunch of money in it. And so these parent leaders on the one on the right have no idea what's going on because no one has prepared them to be in this meeting and be engaged in a good way. And so I wanted to put this up here. And by the way, I got a treasure trove of those because people will say, hey, Meredith, did you know what happened in this? Or who do you know worked in this? And I'll be like, I don't know, but I'm like 4 degrees of Kevin Bacon with all the other mitten mamas. So we'll find out what's going on in that program. So I think it's important to know that pre-games are really, really important for you to have your family stay engaged, be engaged, and actually want to be doing the work. Now, this is where I think we've all touched on it, but pre-games can be their own workshop in their own right, from jargons to offering other resources to community building. For later depth conversation, Kara is absolutely right. When you have a good pre-game with just parents, it's a meeting of the minds for true systems change. That is how all these mitten mamas are here, is because we got to build that. And now look at what we're doing with systems change. Like that's awesome if you think about it, because we are parent-led from this experience. The other nice thing is you're able to engage with each other. There's just all of these things that make a system and a program so much stronger if you actually give us the time to get to know each other, to get educated at our speed, to bounce ideas off of each other, and really have that authentic engagement. The only other thing I wanted to say real quick too about some of that getting to the pregame is for a lot of Native cultures, like when you throw us in a meeting, in an agenda, in an item, if we don't know you, we're not going to talk right away. And you're going to be like, but Meredith, you really seem pretty damn chatty. And I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I talk a lot. When I'm in a comfortable setting, when I know I'm safe, when I know that I'm doing good work in my community, because we have a cultural tenet of Mino Bezadwin, which is the good life. And so even getting to know us in that very pregame way can really unlock some of the power that we have just as people. So I just wanted to put that in there. And then Cressy, I don't know if Monique's volume is working anymore, but if you want to talk a little bit about the post game, the follow-up.
Sure. And I wanted to throw one more thing in the pregame, allowing parents, especially depending on what type of systems work you're doing, there may be some trauma associated with a lot of this for the parents. And the pregame allows them, gives them an opportunity to process that, hopefully a little bit ahead of time. And it also builds that trust, because if they've experienced trauma, especially if it's trauma at the hands of the system itself, they have a lot of knowledge, but they may not necessarily be comfortable sharing it because it may have been weaponized against them in the past. Moving into the post game, it's really important, I think, for a good quality post game too, and I think Mia did a really great job touching on that, because there may be things that are brought up during the meeting that you didn't cover in the pregame because you can't control every variable, that parents do have questions about, but they're not necessarily comfortable throwing it in the chat, or and so having that follow-up and allowing parents an opportunity to kind of talk about what happened in the meeting, what went well, do you have any questions? Were things on the agenda that maybe didn't get covered, because that happens too? And do we want to keep that on the agenda for our next time, or are you comfortable with taking it off? And really the tenet here too is kind of allowing parents or grandparents, whatever that representative is, a voice, because the situation that Mia talked about with, or Kara too, when they talked about just coming in there and these staff members are talking at them, what that tells me as a parent is that you don't see me as a partner. You see me as someone who needs to be educated or something. And if you're not allowing the space for parents to use their voice, that's not what a partnership is. And so it's all about creating the right vibes, if you will. And then it's also important too, I think, to make sure that there's a timely communication of like notes, meeting minutes, whatever you want to call them, because sometimes you have folks who are in the meeting who might have some processing disorders where they weren't able to quite keep up, and this is a good reference tool for them to fall back on too. And also, if you have a parent who historically has been really engaged and they're on it and everything, and then you notice, you know what, they're kind of holding back in this meeting, that's an opportunity for you to further that relationship and reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed this, are you okay? Our thing, and give them that space to say, you know what, that was whatever it was. It could be any number of things, but I think that really does a good job, again, of showing that relationship and that you see them and value them as a person, rather than, well, we have to have so many parents and we check the box.
Yeah, thank you for that segue. So we are going to try Monique through my speakerphone on this, because years ago when we decided to start helping build the Leadership Institute, Monique and Kara were talking, and I want Monique to share her story about why it's important that you know your parents.
Okay, so can everybody hear me now? Does this sound okay? So I have kidney failure, stage 5 to be exact. And when I would say, I have good days and I have bad days. And when I was with this group building on that's the first thing I told them, that I am sick and I have good days and I have bad days. And there are times where I will still make a meeting, but I would have to have the camera off. And because more than likely I'm throwing up at the same time.
Hey, Monique, can I ask a favor, just because I have a thing in the chat? Can you actually put your phone up to your ear and talk, so that way your voice is louder?
Okay, how about this? Does it sound better? Yes, thumbs up? Okay, great, thanks. So I would actually be sick, but still be able to make the meeting, because I wasn't, I'll just get nauseous here and there, and but I would have times where I will miss a couple meetings as well, and nobody reached out. And then when they actually did, this one particular group had no clue that that I was sick. They claimed that they didn't know nothing about it, but yet all my advocacy work has been about my kidney failure and how it came about when I was pregnant, and having to navigate through systems and going through all that with my daughter, and then it causing my daughter to have health problems as well. And for them to not know that I was sick kind of hurt. And it's like, all I've talked about. And so not only was that discouraging, made me feel invalid and that they didn't listen. And then, but I also was on a group, on I said on a council, and they, I missed 2 meetings. One, because of tech failure, I actually didn't receive the date for it. And the other one was because I was at a conference and it just overlapped my meeting, and I wasn't able to make it on time. But they reached out to me and wanted to set up a meeting. And because they remembered me telling them that I was sick, and they wanted to make sure that everything was okay with me on the health end, so they actually remembered, and that made me feel very valid. And they wanted to help me be able to do whatever they can do to make sure I'm well enough to make the meetings, because they made me feel like my voice is very valid and very important. Very, it brings me it encourages me, and yeah. So following up on your parents, getting to know them, and what's also is about getting to know them. It's like I have stepchildren. I have stepchildren during the summer, so throughout the year, it's just me and my daughter, and then during the summer my stepkids come. That also means I have to pay for childcare during the summer. And if you don't know that, and I talk about my kids all the time as well, if you don't know that, it's, they're shocked when it comes to reimbursement, which we'll talk about next week.
Yeah. So getting to know your parents, what I think is so interesting about this conversation, and I didn't have enough time to make the slide, but when I held my first pregame, I literally have a note about Monique, about her daughter, and that check in on her because she's going through kidney failure. I literally put her name because I wanted to know all my parents. And I think that's really important, especially when you're working in these spaces. Every single one of us mitten mamas either has a chronic health condition or cares for someone with a chronic health condition, or both, or multiple family members. And so even understanding that we have a lot of stress, and if you are working with historically disenfranchised families, you will be running into families who have chronic health conditions. And acknowledging and being able to help and resource is such a great trust building measure. It's not like, I don't even know how to describe it, when you know that someone is not just seeing you as a parent, as a tick box for a program, so you can be a budgetary line item, but someone who generally cares about your human rights and what it takes for you to be an individual and be present in that space. I know that we have a short amount of time. So I don't know how far we're going to be able to get through our slides because of our tech issues today. I also wanted to mention real quick before we forget, if everybody can put their name in the chat for us. So then that way we have a list for all of your certs for your CEUs, for your continuing education stuff. That would be great. And we're going to get those out. I just want to do a little housekeeping real quick. And then I know that we had promised the hybrid video, and because of chronic health conditions within Mitten Mamas ourselves, we're asking for a little bit of grace. I see Mia next week, so I'm hoping that she will allow us, yes, Mia, for us to record about how to do a hybrid and the success you've had. So then we will turn that into a YouTube video for you guys to go ahead and take a look at. It's just a matter of life happens, and we're all still part of life. I did want Cressy to touch on real quick about this one, because it's really important. And you had mentioned this before about that trust and building off of that, but then also the rights that we have not to share.
Yeah, so it is important and imperative, especially if you or your agency consider yourself to be trauma informed, that you respect the right to privacy. The parent can be a very valuable resource without sharing every single detail. They get to set the boundaries. And if they're not, and it might be that today they're comfortable sharing and tomorrow they're not. And that's okay too. And it's really important, especially as Meredith mentioned, with historically disenfranchised groups, but also just recognizing that everyone has experienced trauma on some level, and they don't have to share that with you to validate their trauma. That's just not how it works. So recognizing, and that's where it kind of ties back to with checking in. So maybe you have a parent who was, you know, in a situation like this, and they said, yep, I'm comfortable, I'm okay. And then the moment comes and it's too much. Don't make them say pineapple or other strange fruit words. Just move on, you know, and just blame it on tech if you're virtual, because hey, everybody is cool with it. Or just say, we're going to move past that today. We're going to leave that for another day. You know, you don't have to make a big production, and then follow up with that parent later and say, are you okay? You know, and again, they get to define that relationship. If all they say is yes, okay, leave it at that and say, okay, if you want to talk more, I'm here. You know, don't pry if in the, you know, maybe have a different relationship where you'd be okay with that, but be mindful of those things, because it is extremely traumatizing to experience someone mocking your trauma that you've experienced, and it can you know, it can have some really negative impacts on people. And I think you guys are probably all aware of that. But sometimes we get so caught up on the task at hand that we accidentally, because I don't want to say it's deliberately, maybe forget the humanity side of it. And so just stay focused on that and be mindful. And especially again, with historically disenfranchised groups, that their trauma is no more or less valid than anyone else's, but in some ways it is extremely different.
Thank you, Cressy, because I think that's important, that we don't bring us as parents, because we've all experienced this, to come and trauma dump the first time you meet us. Or that we might just sit back and listen for a couple times before we even speak. And that's okay, because that's within our right and our boundary until we feel safe.
Yeah, and I think also one thing I wanted to add to you is when it comes to sharing experiences, my experience as a white woman are my experiences and my experiences alone. I don't speak for all white people. And the same with any other ethnicity, sexual orientation, whatever it is, they represent themselves and themselves only. They don't speak for everybody.
So, all right. Kara, you want to try to do some reflections in the last 2 minutes that we have?
Are we gonna? I was like, oh, I was looking at that, and I was like, I wonder if 3 minutes if we're gonna do this still, or if we should just kind
We
of.
can always have people throw in the chat, or one or two on. I mean, I did pull 2 of these out.
Okay, so we're gonna, if you guys feel comfortable to unmute, or if you would like to throw in the chat, we were curious just how are any of you are ready, or have you in the past for how have you been building trust with your families, and or do you do technology check-ins? Do you provide support? And if so, what are they? Have you ever heard of the post pre-games? Do you do post pre-games? Would you are you going to consider post pre-games?
So if anybody wants to share, for those who got our winner chicken dinner swag last time, because we love it when people actually share with us, because it's also a reciprocal, because when we just shared and you share, and now we're building relationship. And then in my community, it's an honor to always give a gift. And so I'm the gift queen. They call me the Indian Oprah over here. So if you're comfortable sharing, you can unmute and share, or your reflections on these. Have you done these? Have you thought about them? Did you have an aha moment? Or were you like, yo, Mitten Mamas, like the technology threw me off today and I knew half of that already? Because that also is good for us to reflect on how we are doing with teaching and sharing. Athena, I see your hand up.
So I love the idea of a pre and post game, and we typically will do something informal through text messaging and phone calls and just checking in before and after meetings. And I love the idea of having it family led. We've tried to get something going a little bit around that, and I think we're still in the building confidence for some of our parents to be able to step into that role at this point. So we're still building that trust with a lot of our families. We're still building our family advisory group. So I love the idea and the way that it could help bolster that a bit.
Thank you for sharing. That is like when we were doing that pregame, postgame, that's where there's that slide that says this could be a workshop within its own, because it really is part of a whole nother dynamic of making sure that your parent leaders are ready to step into that role. And a lot of this is not linear. When we built it, it's gaining and gaining and gaining that knowledge around. So we understand that struggle. And then I'm going to say, Rain? Brandon? Renee, sorry. Just saying we are launching our Parent Advisory Council, and I think the pre and post game is a great idea that we would like to try. Absolutely. I'm telling you, it's a systems change. That's why we're here. All right, well, those are my 2 winner chicken dinners, everyone. So I'm going to make those names, and we're going to find your emails, and we're going to send you emails so we can personally send you our Mitten Mama swag bag. And then just for reference, they did not let me say on this slide, it's all about the Benjamins, baby, because they're like, Meredith, no one's going to get your reference. So instead, next week, we are talking about making it rain, talking about parent stipends, how to do it, how to involve your accounting department, what is allowed, not allowed, the best things that we have come across. Gift cards to CVS, probably not. But how you can go forward in a good way as you're building your parent leadership. How can we make this happen? And I do believe that next week you are going to have Cressy, me, and Mia. Monique and Kara have some other things on their agenda to, take over the world as Pinky and the Brain. So we won't be having them next week. Is there any other things that we should know about? Otherwise, are we going to say Bama Peak Wabigan until next time?
I just wanted to throw out too, if you have parents that have been engaged for a while, they make the best teachers too for other parents. Keep that in mind. Like, I learn new stuff all the time from these ladies, and there's definitely confidence builders being from with them, around them, knowing that there's other parents out there doing the same kind of stuff. So if you find a dedicated, or once you find your dedicated parent, make sure that parent also understands that they'll start becoming part of the recruiting and retaining process. Like, do you want them around for a while?
All right. And with that, I think that we are good. Katie, could you give us a minute still on, but stop record?